topic of reform in jails and prison has been in many news articles recently. It seems that there has been great attention put towards the conditions of incarceration and the justice system itself.
The representation of jail you've probably seen in popular entertainment does not accurately represent what incarceration fully entails.
So there has been movements and things put in place to help better these conditions. Even with these actions taking place to help with the reform process, it is easier said than done, since there can be certain challenges and possibilities involved, which is observed in the New York Times article titled, "Rethinking Rikers." The article shows the side of those behind the system of reform and how they work towards helping those within the system.
For the article, journalists visited the cell blocks of Cook County Jail and Rikers Island to get a look into efforts made to create safer, contemporary jails.
There are slight comparisons and differences between Cook County and Rikers. Both are described as miles from glittering constellations of skyscrapers distantly visible through Concertina wire, and many of their cell blocks are decades old. According to the article, officials say this contributes to violence. Many modern jails have a circular layout, so just a few guards can keep an eye on all inmates at once. In Chicago and New York, the oldest cell blocks are all sharp angles and dark corridors. Inmates are known to use pieces of metal pulled from old ventilation grates or lighting fixtures to fashion weapons. The contrast between both jails outweighed the similarities. Rikers is known as the troubled New York City jail complex. Located in the East River, the sprawling compound is mostly invisible. It holds approximately 9,000 inmates and has more old-fashioned methods to go about running operations. About 804.8 miles heading south lies Cook County Jail, sitting on 96 acres in southwest Chicago. Compared to Rikers, it is a little more visible, but eye-catching. Its structures consist of high walls, guard towers, and has held known criminals such as John Wayne Gacy and Al Capone. At the time of the article, Judge Virginia M. Kendall of the Northern District of Illinois, who ended 43 years of federal oversight at Cook County Jail in June, declared the court hearing a momentous day. From her point of view, it is not a situation where people put a band-aid on it and wanted to move on. She also praised the first overseer of the jail, elected Sheriff Thomas J. Dart, who believes that Cook County should not just be a repository. It shouldn't just hold people. They're going to try to change behavior and do it with metrics, and doing it with technology. Administrators at the jail hired and trained more correction officers and brought in teams of psychologists. Many jails around the country have bolstered services for the large population of inmates with mental illness. A unit lobbies judges and prosecutors to release the sickest inmates into diversion programs or treatment. Rikers, certain units have been newly renovated to aid in easing tensions that may rise. There are 3 flat-screen televisions set to different channels. Older cell blocks have only one, and phones on the unit are now spaced out to avoid conflict. Instead of using chemical restraints on inmates in previous years, going back as far as 1988, there is now group therapy. New York City, under Mayor de Blasio, did away with solitary confinement completely for all inmates under 22 years old. Now, instead of being locked away for 23 hours a day for misbehavior, the youngest inmates receive counseling and incentives to behave, like movie nights and extra recreation, and the best behaved can take part in programs like a gardening class. Despite all the changes in an endorsement from a federal judge, violence within the jail is still an issue. President of the Correct Officers Unit, Elias Hassanuddin, says the new rules have tied guards' hands and made the jails more dangerous. Since they are not allowed to lock inmates up for 23 hours because they say it's detrimental to their mental stability, the inmates will tell the officers, "You can't do nothing to us." Sheriff Dart acknowledges that the presence of violence within any jail was inevitable. His priority is to make sure that for the most part, people don't end up in jail in the first place. De Blasio's plans for Rikers are more ambitious. The plan he laid out in June envisions Rikers being replaced by smaller jails closer to courthouses and communities. The plan will cost billions of dollars and an unknown amount of political capital. For now, the city is left trying to make Rikers livable. Reform, though very much needed in these jails, of course has its pros and cons. The article presents both sides of the issue quite efficiently and effectively to where one can gain a great understanding of what goes on behind the scenes. Maybe one day, we will see an article showing then versus now, and how further improvements came to be and the effect it had on inmates for the better.
I'm Nyah Williams, and this has been your Daily News.